What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Five Red Lights. My name is Jesse Finver, and with me, as always, Howard Goldberg. Monaco weekend, baby.
Monaco weekend, indeed, and
that was
more
probably
so.
That's probably the most excited either of us will sound about this entire race. But
Yeah.
it is Monaco.
But more so, forget about just Monaco. If you're a racing fan, this Sunday was the crown jewel of the year for you. It just every big race except for Le Mans was yesterday. You had MotoGP at Silverstone. You had F1 at Monaco. You had IndyCar at the Indy 500. And you had NASCAR running its only 600-mile race, the Coca-Cola 600. So it was, for just about every series, it was like the marquee weekend. And I'm not a huge MotoGP fan. I've just gotten into it this year. Watched a few races, don't really know much of the history behind any of it. Beyond, like Valentino Rossi was the guy. Marc Marquez came in as he was towards the end of his career, stopped him from winning those final titles to put him over the edge. And so I don't know the significance of Silverstone to MotoGP, but to every racing series, it is, it's a legendary British track, and England is ingrained in the culture of racing, whatever kind of racing it is. So, I imagine that's a big race for them.
Yeah, it's Silverstone. Like that is a huge deal, regardless. Yeah. I got to imagine.
Before we get into it, that was the first thing I watched, obviously, of the day. It happened first. Mayhem right away. So,
well, which race are we talking about here? Are we talking
MotoGP at Silverstone. So, okay. The race start. Alex Marquez, who is number 2 in the championship right now, he's at the Ducati customer team, and he had an incredible start from second on the grid. As he was coming into the first corner, which I think they start on the back straight, so I think the first corner is Copse, if I'm not mistaken. But he comes into that first corner, and as soon as he starts to lean, his bike came right out from under him. He slid right off the road. Tough luck. What happens? His brother Mark, from like 4th on the grid, the second row, comes around. He's like knocking on the door for the lead. He takes the lead. Then he slides off the road. As that happens, a red flag came out.
So
in MotoGP, as I learned on Sunday, if there's a red flag before 3 racing laps are complete, it's a complete race reset, which means that both Alex Marquez and Marc Marquez, the 2 guys who crashed out, who are number 2 and number 1 in the championship, were allowed to take their second bike out of the garage and go back into the race.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
They got like a free pass there.
Yeah. They got to get out of jail free. It was incredible. I was like, what is this? I was like, could you imagine if Ferrari just had like a third car sitting in their garage in case one of the guys crashed?
In F2,
like, get back to the garage. Get back to the garage.
Didn't F2 at Monaco start, and also the supercar series both started with huge crashes at the first turn? Yeah. So like imagine
if there's just like spec cars that, a third car for each team that you could just wheel off the truck and put on the grid if you need it.
Yeah, like, that'd be crazy. But thankfully, what
ended up happening in that race is they saw their 10th different winner in 10 years at the MotoGP race at Silverstone. 10 different winners in 10 years.
That's pretty nice. That's parity right there.
Yeah. Sorry for getting us off track to start.
No, it's okay. I love how excited you are about it. That's the passion that I love.
I hadn't seen anything like it. Was just unadulterated chaos. It was beautiful.
Kind of the opposite of what we saw in Monaco this weekend.
Yeah.
Outside of the
They
end
were
of
looking to
qualifying.
create chaos, and it didn't work.
It did not work, which we will get into for sure. So, Monaco, the crown jewel of racing, as you said. I mean, not just what you. I mean, you didn't create that term. That is known as the crown jewel of racing. Unbelievable scenes. It was an exciting Saturday.
It was a great Saturday.
Practice sessions kind of gave us. I mean, practice doesn't always give you a good idea of what we're going to see in the weekend. Generally, it does. You get to see how upgrades are looking, and you get a little sneak peek at what qualifying should look like. How fast is the car? Ferrari looked fast from the get-go this weekend, which maybe that's
they looked hooked up.
Maybe that's just maybe that's just because the car is good at Monaco. Like it's really good for slow speed turns, but it was pretty apparent very early on that we were going to get a really good Charles weekend.
Yeah, and one of the theories that I had heard is what Ferrari is struggling with this year is the balance in their car. It's not necessarily the performance at high or low speed, because they can find both of those things. It's the balance of having both of them work at the same time. And that's something that Monaco, the circuit, takes out of the equation, right? Because there's not really the high speed corners. You need to focus on getting traction out of low speed. And so they were able to really focus on setting up their car for that one thing. And it worked. They used their winning wings from last year. So they were able to save money on the cost cap. Didn't have to put any time or resources into developing anything for this year, which is a great move, especially when it's equipment that works. So yeah, it was definitely an impressive weekend for Ferrari. You can't overlook the fact that it is a track that the driver can make difference at, and it's a good one for both Lewis and Charles.
Lewis,
but that car,
Charles won.
That car looked pretty planted from the first time it got out there. So
yeah. It was just very, like I said, it was very apparent that this was going to be a good weekend for Ferrari, which is a rarity this season. To be honest, I mean, we haven't seen them dominate at a track like we've seen them at Monaco this year season.
Right.
And these changes that you mentioned, or I guess lack of changes from last season, and the setup that they had really made a huge difference for them. So practice was good, and then qualifying.
Practice.
It looked like Charles was going to have this.
Yeah, at one point, Charles had led like the last 8 sessions at Monaco between practices, qualifying last year, the race last year, practices this year, Q1 and Q2. He led like 8 straight sessions. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the McLarens turned up the wick in Q3. Both Oscar and Lando were threats to him. Max was up there at one point. But once it came down to the last run, the second run of Q3, which actually was the second and third run because the McLarens sent their guys out to do double push laps at the end.
Yeah.
And I think that really helped Lando find that extra limit in his car. And a great call. I mean, why not go for it? It's the tires aren't going to get eaten up at Monaco, so you have the ability to give yourself that opportunity. And good on McLaren for doing it, because I think if you walked up and down that pit lane asking everybody who's going to be on pole at the end of Q2, probably 10 teams would have said Charles LeClerc. So that was a great gamble that they kind of had to take, if you want to call it a gamble. And it paid off, because we saw as we got into the race, it wasn't possible to overtake. It just wasn't.
Yeah. I mean, that's just consistent with how Monaco has been for a while now because of the size of these cars. It, Charles Q3 comes and Charles looks like it's over. He's on pole in that final lap, and Lando comes in and sets the track record.
And you gotta also recognize. So Lando, he went again before Charles's final run. So he got his second run in. And after Lando's second run, the gap between him and Charles was half a second.
Yeah.
So Charles on his second run found that half a second, and then like another 10th and a half. He was like a 10th and a half up on Lando. So like you really look at it, and Lando in his last at the end of Q3 found almost three quarters of a second,
which is insane. It's a credit to Lando. It's a credit to McLaren. And I want to give even not just, I mean, obviously McLaren has had an incredible car all season long, but Lando has struggled in these kind of moments for the majority.
Yeah, the high pressure qualifying moments at the end of Q3.
And he came through in a way we've never seen before. Because I mean, when I say never seen before, I mean he set the track record at Monaco.
Yeah,
he put up a 109. It's the first person
ever under 70 seconds.
Yeah, which is just incredible.
Think of how long they've been racing around there.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, I mean, like back in the day, it was like 140 for a lap. It's obviously gotten much faster now. But
I'd say the last 20 years is all in the ballpark, because you still have track records that are standing from the early 2000s, some of the Ferrari cars of the early 2000s with Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello. They still have some track records.
Yeah.
I think no, I'm not going to say one because I'm going to get it wrong.
So yeah, it looked like Charles had this locked up, and Lando comes out of nowhere. The toughest one, because I mean, at his other qualifyings that he's made those mistakes, there are the opportunities in the race for him to make up for it. And this week, you don't have those opportunities in Monaco, so it added pressure, and he still came through, and that was great to see, because I think everybody has gotten at least a little bit critical of Lando and how he's handled us included. We've both been critical of him, so it was great to see Lando come through.
Now the people that we're going to talk about in that situation who didn't come through, kind of how we've spoken about Lando in past races, the Mercedes cars. It
was a rough week for Merc.
It was disappointing, very disappointing qualifying. It kind of put them out for the race. They never were able to recover. It's a huge blow in their constructors standings. They're now like a point ahead of Ferrari, which is crazy. Ferrari's been horrible this year. George Russell's been on the podium 4 of 7 races, and now they're a point apart. So
it also helped.
It was a very tough weekend for them. Yuki also going out early in qualifying just ruined his weekend. He tried to pit on the first lap, ended up just getting stuck in a DRS train. So that showed that even this year, even with a car that's faster than the ones ahead of you, you can't get around them.
No, you can't. And now, I mean, George is sitting in 4th place. He's 20 points ahead of Charles, but he's way behind. He's way behind in the drivers and the constructors. They're in second. This was never a race. Like the constructors was never. We said it last week. I mean, the constructors was over weeks ago, honestly.
And it's why McLaren doesn't have to make any tough decisions regarding the drivers.
Right.
because
Well,
they're not
they're
under
3 points
threat
apart.
in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, they're just going to let them race. They're
Yeah,
like, oh, listen.
right. It's why they now have the luxury, even if they're gonna lose a race win, it's why, which is something I've been kind of to this point, like they have to be going for race wins. Doesn't matter which driver, just go for the race win. And they're at the point now where it's still so early in the season, but they don't have to worry about that stuff. They really don't.
Just have to be consistently good. Like just be in that, get podiums and finish at top. I mean,
Yeah.
what's the most interesting storyline of this left in the season is 2 through 4 because they're separated by 5 points. 147 for Mercedes, 143 for Red Bull, and 142 for Ferrari.
Yeah, at one point we were talking. I mean, it was we shouldn't really have been looking at what the points were. But at one point we were wondering if Williams would be able to catch Ferrari. And now we're like 3 races later, Williams hasn't underperformed, but all of a sudden now it's Ferrari is a point behind Red Bull and 5 points behind Mercedes.
Yeah, I mean, Williams is going to come in 5th. I think that's pretty apparent.
Yeah, that feels pretty locked in unless Liam Lawson starts also driving the wheels off that second Red Bull, which he had himself a good weekend.
He did, and Hadjar really was fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that's becoming a normal thing, and we've all got to stop being surprised by that. And it was something that they really started talking about a lot more on the broadcast this weekend, at least on F1 TV. We've been aware of Isaac Hadjar for years. He's been a Red Bull junior through F3, F2. I just don't think anybody pegged him. I think people expected he might make Formula one day, but I don't think people pegged him as this kind of talent. And that's something that some of the guys on TV, some of the guys and girls on TV were saying of, well, yeah, F1 cars are different from F2 and F3 cars. They're different cars to drive. And some drivers make that step and it makes them better. Some of them make that step, it makes them worse. I think there's no doubt that it's made Isaac better. And there's just something about him that's able to deal with the pressure and all the new information and still go very fast in a car. And I think what's important right now is that people don't try to push him to that Red Bull seat too early, because that can be something that destroys somebody. And we saw it with both Pierre and Alex, where they looked so promising in that AlphaTauri and got pushed to Red Bull too soon, and they couldn't handle all the pressures that came along with it. And so I think he's in a perfect environment right now to allow him to keep doing what he's doing, probably win Rookie of the Year, because if him and Kimi keep doing what they're doing, I think what he's doing is more impressive than Kimi.
And not just that, but he's doing it in the Racing Bull is fast. It's been for when I say fast, I mean in relation to what we thought it was going to be. You know, it's exceeding our expectations, and he has 3 top 10 finishes in his last 4 races. He's been very impressive, very fast. Getting 6th place at Monaco is not nothing. All right, especially as a rookie. He's doing a really good job. I agree with you. Also, don't rush him up. Let him, work his way up and earn that Red Bull spot. Not that Albon and Pierre didn't earn that Red Bull seat, but it feels like this is something that Red Bull does, where they panic a little bit and they promote people to try and fix issues. And they kind of fixed that problem they had when they got Checo, but Checo is obviously everything that happened with Checo. And then they lost Danny Ricciardo. So those are the outliers. But I think that they need to be
they didn't lose Daniel Ricciardo. They just didn't choose him.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Yes. They went elsewhere.
They decided not to have him.
Yes.
Lose him.
Sorry, I thought he left on his own. It's been
No,
a couple
they
of years
said.
now.
I mean, he could have stayed. I don't think he could have even stayed at V Carb. I think they were saying you can be like an ambassador for Red Bull or not, essentially.
And then he went to Renault, right?
Oh, you're talking about years ago.
Yeah, years ago.
Yes, he chose to leave. Yes,
he chose to leave. He was like, you know what? Like, I mean, and he was a race winner. He was better than Max at the time. Max was more promising. He was like the wonder kid, but they were like they had a multi-time race winner in that seat. He
but
won
at
at
that
Monaco.
point, they were favoring Max already with their team decisions. So he was like,
sure.
I'm out of here.
Yeah, so he was like, you know what?
Like
I'm gonna go to Renault.
Like when they crashed in Baku and it was Max's fault, like clear as day, and nobody at the team would admit that. That's when he knew it was time, and he says that himself.
Yeah. So I mean, he
Renault
made
him
I'm out of here.
Special.
But Danny leaves.
I think also part of the problem was at that point, Red Bull was getting very close to finally catching Mercedes and taking them down in the constructors. And at that point, it had been 6 years of utter domination from Mercedes. And
they were getting closer,
desperate. They were desperate. So
because they won 4 straight before Mercedes.
The idea for them of throwing anybody possible in that second seat to try to get the points made sense. It was just they didn't really consider consequences in doing so.
Well, they won 4 straight before Mercedes went on that run, right?
Yes, and then the regulations changed and nobody came close to Mercedes for 4 years.
Yeah.
Until 2017, 18, 19, Ferrari was able to finally fight. But 2019, they actually had an illegal engine. So
and then Red Bull, obviously, with the whole taking down.
Yeah, Red Bull ditched the Renault engine, got back with Honda, and then boom.
The rest is history. So anyway, we got off topic. It's good to see Hadjar, doing his thing, and we're seeing Racing Bulls really impress us. And maybe we'll see Liam continue to do well as well. So that was qualifying, and then the race happened, and it was
boring.
It was boring. It was. There were no overtakes.
I'll admit,
there was one overtake. It was the first lap, and Kimi drove Bortoletto into the wall.
There was the second one that I saw too, which wasn't. I didn't see it on the broadcast. I don't think they showed it, but I've seen replays of it since, and it was Lance Stroll made a beautiful overtake going into Nouvelle Chicane. And that is one of
that's the one out of the tunnel,
yeah, the chicane coming out of the tunnel, and he made a great late braking move, overtook on the outside, turning into the corner. So outside becomes the inside when you turn right, and then the outside as they come back to the left. And it was a great move, but the one that you're talking about is the problem. Like Kimi got past Bortoletto at Poitiers, and like any move in Monaco, it requires a late lunge.
And that's the turn. For those who don't know the names of the turns, that's the turn right before the tunnel.
Right. Yeah, that comes. Yeah, it's the turn that's right after the hairpin. You turn right. There's that small little shoot down towards the water. That's Poitiers. That turns right, comes out, and you're now on the straight. It's also where Kimi Räikkönen crashed, got out of the car, walked to a yacht.
And Senna walked to his apartment.
But like that's one of the problems is it requires such a late lunge that oftentimes the driver can't see the person coming. And so Bortoletto had no choice but to go into the wall. And it wasn't a dirty lunge by Kimi. The space was there. He took it. But it just highlights a problem of there is not enough space for these cars to overtake each other.
Yes.
And it's sad too, because I was excited for the first handful of laps of the race of what the two-stop mandate could potentially bring, because a lot of people were talking about how nobody in pit lane really agreed on how to approach it. Of, do we try to get them done early? Do we what should we do with this? And what it turned into is really embarrassing for Formula One. Of, all right, we're going to get our cars close together. We're going to have one of them drive 4 seconds off the pace to create a gap that we can pit in the next 4 laps, drive fast, pit again. It was disgusting. That's not racing. And then the fact that some of the biggest excitement of the race was when it looked like Alex Albon was slowing down to retire coming out of the chicane, the Neuville chicane, when in fact he was just letting Carlos Sainz pass because Carlos had backed up the pack for him already. He got his 2 pit stops in, and now it was time for them to swap positions and do it again. And for me, that was really the point where I was like, no.
James Valls even came over the radio
this
and was
cannot be the way.
James Valls came on the radio and was like, yeah, we this is kind of what we have to do. He didn't sound happy about what the race was.
It came out after the race. Apparently he texted Toto and apologized. Said I'm sorry, we have to do this. And Toto answered and was like, I get it. Do what you have to do. I understand. But it for me made it feel like a mockery. And I'm not one of these racing purists that's you can't ever change the rules or this or that. But at what point is it no longer racing? And that's what it started to feel like in Monaco on Sunday, that it wasn't racing. It was and that's why
strategy.
And that's why it was so tough seeing the drive-through from George Russell, because I understand on one hand because he blatantly did it on purpose, said so on the radio, and so I understand why the stewards had to say, no, you're not getting away with that. But at the same time, you're then validating somebody purposely driving around 4 seconds slower than they can. And it's just either way, you're losing.
Yeah.
As a sport. Either way, you lose.
The only exciting thing that I found during the entire race was the last 10 laps or so, Charles was on Lando.
Oh, how lap traffic brought it all together. And then
it was not the lap traffic. It was them actually racing. And there's only one real place where you can't, there's, so Stroll had that overtake at Neuville. Kimi had that overtake right before the tunnel. So there are places to overtake, but when it comes to 2 cars as fast as Ferrari and McLaren, the only place you can really try and overtake is on that first straight, where the starting line is, where the DRS zone is. And constantly you were seeing those last 10 to 12 laps, Charles was approaching Lando and getting within 0.3 of a second, really close. And they would get to that last turn before they get to that back straight or the front straight or whatever you want to call it, the DRS zone. And Lando would take off. And you mentioned the setup that Ferrari had. But you mentioned the setup that Ferrari had and how they used the same setup they had last year. And they saved money and all this and that. I mean, it really highlighted the difference in the cars where, if Charles won quali, I think he wins. I mean, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that he was going to win the race because overtaking so hard. But it would have been much more interesting to me if Charles did win quali and was in first and Lando was in second, or even Oscar, and that McLaren was behind the Ferrari, and on that back straight with the acceleration that the McLaren has, that's better than the Ferrari has. If there would have been an opportunity for the McLaren to pass the Ferrari because the Ferrari had no chance. Charles was getting
I see what you're
2 tenths
saying, and I
behind him,
don't think there would have been.
and
Because it's a concertina effect. It's a concertina effect. It's the car that's in front is able to get on their power quicker. And like, yes, he had slightly better traction, but if you flip it around, Charles is going to get on his power sooner. And so if you're like 2 tenths ahead, you get your power down.
But you have the
kind
DRS.
of makes that DRS isn't worth shit. I'm sorry. It's worth maybe a tenth of a second. It's not worth enough. And Charles is going to position himself. Yeah. He's just going to position himself on the inside, make Lando try to go around the outside. It's not worth the risk because it's so tight. And so, like, what I'm saying about coming out of the corner and traction is by the time you get up to speed as the second car, the first car is already so far down the road that even with the DRS, there's not enough room.
Yeah, it sucks because Charles was it would get to like 8 tenths of a second after that stretch, and then Charles would make that time back up throughout the course, and by the hairpin he was on his ass, like just right there, like
and that's I think that's where I think people need to start trying to make moves at other places. And if it ends in tears, so be it. Give us entertainment. And it's just
they don't care about that though. They want to win the race.
I want to see a move up into Casino Square or down into Massenet. And these are the places that Charles Leclerc was closing rapidly on Lando. And it's a place somebody's not going to expect to move. And that's what it's going to take, because when you know there's a move potentially on, it's so easy to just park the car in the middle of the road. And that's why you can't pass in Monaco.
So where in Casino Square, like, for example, would you pass? Because like they have like that weird bump down the hill where like every time they showed that, you see them swerve out of the way of that bump. And if they hit that bump, trying to overtake,
it's coming up at the top after Sandoval.
Right, they would fly down the track, like literally go airborne if they
it's before that. It's when they come left before they turn right. There's an opportunity up there.
Like the
you have that whole run up the hill.
The run up the hill. Yep.
And so all it takes is poking your nose out at the right moment, and there you go. You have a line. And it's just very frustrating that we didn't see anybody even attempt that.
Yeah, there has to be something that we're missing, because you make a good point. Like, why not try and overtake there? Like where like the Gucci store is, like that, like right before the casino, like you get to the casino turn, that right into the left.
The row lunging on the hairpin, like
it's frustrating. It is. So you wanted to talk about this, and I brought this up the other day, and you shot it down. But you know, you can say like the Beau Rivage up into Massenet, that could be a place where you overtake. But like the longest straight should be Portier through the tunnel all the way to the grandstands, and that Neuville chicane feels so unnecessary.
Can't take that out.
Why?
You can't. Why? Because you're gonna have cars coming up to like a 6-meter wide turn at 280 kilometers per hour.
Which turn? No. What do you mean a 6-meter wide turn? Yeah, slow down. You got to overtake. That is a long straight right there that you should be able to overtake.
That corner, it's not sustainable. I'm sorry.
There are a lot of fans.
If that's the solution for Monaco, then that's sorry.
Are you saying it's too dangerous?
I don't think that's really going to do the trick.
Why not? It would be the longest straight of the race. It would you go through the tunnel and down into the. I mean, obviously, it's a downhill.
I'm open to seeing it. I just don't think it's going to work.
But wasn't that already like Neuville chicane wasn't always there?
No, and you were never always able to overtake. It didn't like magically stop overtaking in Monaco. It's not if you look back over history, it
No, I
wasn't like
know.
there were 20 overtakes a race. Now there's 4. It
I'm
was
just
always like
offering a
around 10.
solution. At least, like I'm trying to think of a solution here, like and give a more of
I
a.
know, and I think it has more to do. It has a lot less to do with the track.
And you think it's more about the car?
The cars change more over the years than the track. It's not that hard to compute.
So then your solution is
It's
smaller cars?
No, the solutions that have been heard were that I've been seeing is like Monaco specific cars not included in the cost cap. Just build them to a different spec, have a different size spec on them, almost like elite level go-karts that you can drive around the city. And
would that be F1 though? Like
if you're giving them a separate set of regulations that they all have to build to and technical directives, and I mean, yeah, that's what F1 was before the cost cap. But like exactly, that's where it's such a slippery slope. How much can you change?
yeah. I mean, it's only one. Like there's so many races. Like all this effort just for like. I mean, it is the crown jewel. It is the biggest race of the year.
Do you make it a non-points race so people are willing to take more risks? Like
No, you can't do that. You got to because that takes away the luster and the importance of the race. You know, it's again. I don't want people to think that we think that this is like some sort of easy race where like if you win qualifying, it's a guarantee. You saw all weekend people crashing into barriers and making mistakes.
You need to know your pit stops. You need to not get undercut or overcut. I mean, there's stuff that goes into it. You have to have elite focus for 78 laps. Not easy with walls right there. It's a very difficult test, but
it's just not entertaining.
Yeah. It's when you feel more excited to watch qualifying than the race, you know that something probably needs to change.
It's just that question is, what is that something?
Right. That's something nobody really knows.
Yeah.
It's been very obvious for years.
It's unfortunate because it really is a beautiful track. It's a beautiful city, and it's an awesome race. Like it's an awesome place. It should be an awesome race, and it's just not. It's just not. No. It's just not a fun race at all.
No, I do want to move on now, though.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much more to talk.
To a race that was fun and did have a lot going on. A race that on Sunday, approximately 1 in every 1,100 people in the United States was at. A race that over 1.5 million beers were consumed at. The Indy 500.
Hell yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen. It is the biggest party in America. There were over 300,000 people, over 400,000 people there just for the one-day event. When you see all these attendance numbers for Formula One, that's like over the weekend. So like when you see like 450,000 people went to COTA this year, that was combined over Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This is one day.
Yeah.
400,000 people. And my God, what a day they produced. The action started before the green flag. Scott McLaughlin, heart breaks for him. He had a bit of a Isaac moment from Australia. It was not raining, but the track was very cold. It was, I think they said, the coldest track temperatures they've had in almost a decade at Indy 500. And so he was warming up his tires on the formation lap and lost it on the pit straight, just past the pit exit. So there was still a wall, and yeah, he put it in the wall on the formation lap, and it was crushing. He got out of the car. He was crouched down. You could see how much it meant to him. Lap 4, Marco Andretti of obviously the legendary family trying to break the Andretti curse at IMS. Nope. Lap 4 under caution. He crashes. Robert Schwartzman started on pole in his Prema. First rookie on pole since like 1983, I think it was. He almost immediately dropped down. The order was running towards the back of top 5, top 10. Then came in for a pit stop towards the middle of the race. Brakes gave out. Locked up his front tires. Hit a couple of his crew members and the wall.
So, all right, I watched a little bit of the Indy 500, and it was at this time when I tuned in, and I saw I saw this crash, and it wasn't just this crash. There were like 3 other crashes.
There were a bunch of crashes on pit road, and it was
what?
It had to be the only thing that could explain it was the track temperature, and it was giving them trouble keeping the tires. Because you also have to remember, these guys aren't braking; they're going flat out around Indy. So like
the brakes aren't warm.
You're going You're going on the tires are cool. Their tires are getting pretty cool because they did a breakdown. Every corner is a quarter of a mile. So that's 1 mile, right? So that means that there's 1.5 miles of straightaways on that track. So you're going 3/4 of a mile at a time, basically, 1/2 mile or 1/4 of a mile at a time. Just tires and brakes cooling. Like, yeah,
it's like a muscle.
Lockups, and you're gonna have lockups, and it's gonna be difficult slowing the car down for pit road.
It's like a baseball player pulling a hamstring out of running out of home plate because they haven't been running all day because they play first base or something, and they're just standing around and their muscles are cold, and they pull a muscle. Like you need your brakes warm, you need your tires warm, and that makes a ton of sense. But I've never seen it. I mean, I've only started watching racing consistently recently, and I'd never seen anything like that. So that was definitely new for me. And then also the other thing that I saw, which I don't see you have listed here in our rundown, is Kyle Larson.
Kyle Larson crashed.
I saw that one.
Not
also
a great day for him.
Not
a great day for him. He crashed.
That was a ridiculous crash. I mean, I don't know. Like he didn't get hit. I think the announcer said that he downshifted when he shouldn't have, and his car just like started freaking out. And they interviewed him after, and he was just like, wasn't making excuses, but he was clearly really pissed at himself and didn't want to make himself look bad. And he also apologized to whoever, like the other 2 drivers that he hit.
I feel bad for him because he's been under such a microscope because people have asked him about comparisons between him and Max Verstappen, and he's answered the questions. People have kind of taken it and run with it as he's comparing himself to Max. And it's like, that's not what happened. He was asked a question and he's answered. He's not just like out of nowhere going like, I'm as good a driver as Max Verstappen. So like, I feel like people are taking pride in seeing his failures at the Indy 500. And that's really sad because here's somebody who's going and trying to accomplish one of the great feats in motorsports, driving 1,100 miles in one day. And there are fans of racing out there rooting against it, which that bothers me. if you really love racing, you look at that and you go, holy crap, that's awesome. Good luck to him.
Right.
So like to see people celebrating the fact that he crashed in both of the races is kind of sad. But I mean, at the end of the day, he accomplished more than anybody talking about him has. So, hey, good for him.
Hey, people don't hate nobodies.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. So who won this race?
Winner. I'll give you one guess if you followed IndyCar.
Well, I have the answer in front of me, but I wanted to set it up for you.
Well, okay, fine. It's Alex Palou. Man's inevitable. He now has an 83% win percentage this year.
That's pretty
He's won
insane.
like 5 of their 6 races. It doesn't make sense. This series is supposed to be a series built on parity and a different person winning each week. They're all in identical cars. The only thing changing is the setup, or if you have a Honda engine or a Chevy engine. So it doesn't make sense that somebody is able to dominate the sport like this. I don't think it's been seen at this level. I don't know if ever.
Is he just that much better than everybody else?
At the moment, it appears so.
Because
they have like a big dinner, a big banquet after the Indy 500 every year, and this year Scott Dixon got up there. And for those of you who don't follow IndyCar, he's almost like the Lewis Hamilton right now. He's kind of in the twilight of his career, but in the modern generation, he is the absolute undisputed GOAT, of the last 20 years. He has 6 IndyCar championships. He's won over 50 races. Like almost any statistical record, he's got it for this era. And he's like 2nd or 3rd all time in race wins. So he's this legend. He gets up at the banquet and goes, congratulate. He's also Alex Palou's teammate at Chip Ganassi Racing. He gets up there and goes, congratulations, Alex. I got you a surprise today, actually. I got you a surprise. It's for you and, your family and team and loved ones. I got you a 5-week summer vacation. Starts this Thursday. So it's just like they all recognize, like the whole room was in stitches. Like they were cracking up. Like they recognize he's at this moment just on a different level from them.
Yeah.
Like it's at this point not a matter of if he's going to win. It's all right, when is everybody else going to pit and leave him an opportunity to just put in qualifying laps on his used up tires, come into the pit and come out ahead of everybody. It's been remarkable to watch this year. I said earlier in the year, as everybody was discussing Cadillac and who they're going to bring to F1, and Colton Herta has been a hot name because he's an American, has F1 aspirations, almost came a couple years ago when Nick DeVries got the seat at AlphaTauri. Back when we were discussing that, I said if one driver comes from IndyCar to Formula One, if it's not Alex Palou, it's disingenuous. And I essentially said that. And it's because he's just so clearly head and shoulders above everybody else right now in that sport. And I don't think you can make an argument for anybody else. It's been awesome. It's been like watching Max Verstappen 2023. It is the absolute sight to behold.
I feel like with how IndyCar is set up, everybody has it's a level playing field, right? Where the setups are, it's just your setup that's different, but the cars are pretty much all the same. It must mean, and this is an outsider's perspective, it must just mean he's just better than everybody else. He's just a better driver than everybody else in the field. And it's a huge field, right? It's like 30 plus drivers, right?
33 cars in the Indy 500. Yeah, it's about like 20. It's anywhere from like 25 to 35 cars on a given week.
It's pretty incredible watching the Indy 500, seeing how wide the track is and seeing all the cars coming down that straight.
They were 4
towards
wide
the
at one
camera.
point on the main street.
Yeah, coming towards the camera and seeing 3 or 4 cars wide, and they're weaving in and out of each other. I don't find like I've never been into NASCAR. I just because like it's just turning left the whole time. I know there's way more strategy. I was ignorant before, and I know there's way more strategy involved, and it's not just turning left. You have to actually pass people, and there's a lot more I've learned about racing.
Aerodynamics too now.
Yeah, but
getting to somebody's right rear or left rear and just pulling them back towards you, just
right
them back.
So I've never been into that, but the Indy 500, I've always the spectacle of it is just so awesome.
It's the greatest spectacle in racing.
Yeah, and
it
really is cool. I'd love to see. I mean,
just a different level of speed.
Do you think like what's stopping Formula One from? Is it just because Indy, like they be allowed to race at Indy Motor Speedway? Like, is that ever going to be a thing that they try and do? Do you think? Like,
they raced at the road course in the 2000s. Michael Schumacher's won at Indy Motor Speedway.
But why not go on the loop?
On the oval?
Yeah, why not go on the oval and like go 5 wide?
Probably the drivers are scared. I don't know. I have no idea.
I think that'd be awesome.
If you ask Formula One drivers if they would drive IndyCar, a lot of them say no because they wouldn't do the ovals.
Really?
Max Verstappen wouldn't do the ovals, I don't think.
Did you find it boring?
Because they find it scary. It's an unnecessary risk to a lot of them.
Interesting.
Yeah. It is really interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting.
That's where they draw the line.
Ovals. You'd think like
235, 240 around an oval.
Yeah, that's a lot. That is fast. That's very fast.
Like Takuma Sato, I think, is who it was. If it wasn't him, it was somebody else this year in one of the practice sessions, had like a 90 G impact at the Indy 500 in a practice session. That's a lot. It's like the king one that people talk about in F1 is Verstappen and Lewis at Silverstone from 2021 when Max basically like went straight off in cops.
Didn't he land on top of Lewis or something? Like, was that the
No, that was Monza.
That
was Monza when Daniel Ricciardo ended up winning. Which, disclaimer, Daniel Ricciardo was ahead of both of them when they crashed. Anyway, just gotta clear that up.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, but that Silverstone impact was somewhere around like 55 or 60 Gs of force. So that's like 2/3 of what was felt at Indy. So I can understand it.
Yeah. All right. The other big race of the weekend.
Final thing about Indy, a couple disqualifications after the race. Second place finisher and Formula One champion, racer, Formula One driver for Sauber, Marcus Ericsson. He was disqualified. Kyle Kirkwood was disqualified. Both of them for Andretti. They finished 2nd and 6th. They were found to have unapproved modifications to their energy management system covers. And then Callum Ilott from Prema, he finished 12th. He was found to not meet the front wing end plate height specs. So all 3 of them moved to the back of the field. And what that did was upgrade Pato O'Ward to 2nd place for 3rd year in a row.
How about that?
Poor guy.
All right. Real quick, Coca-Cola 600, the other big race of the weekend. Walk me through it. I didn't watch any of this.
Yeah, Coca-Cola 600, one of the 2 NASCAR races I've been to.
This is in one of the Carolinas, right?
Yeah, this is in Charlotte, North Carolina. At it was Lowe's Motor Speedway, but I think that's changed at this point. But I'm a Denny Hamlin fan. Absolute heartbreak for him in this one. Just for context, this is a really big race in NASCAR because one, it's the only race that's longer than 500 miles, and two, it's in Charlotte, which is like the hub for NASCAR. Most of the teams are based there. Most of the drivers live there. So it's a race that they all get to have their family, their kids at, and it's a little bit more meaningful because of that. Denny Hamlin, he was looking like the fastest car, him and William Byron all race long. Comes down to the final pit stops, 2 cans of fuel and tires for Denny. First can of fuel goes in, second can of fuel, boom, goes into the tank. All of a sudden, all the fuel just starts dripping on the ground. So the second tank didn't get in his car. So he ultimately had to pit again with like 14 to go, cost him a race win.
That's brutal.
Ross Chastain, though, story of the night. This guy drove from 40th, 40th, 40, to first. He started dead last and won the race. It was unbelievable. And after the race, this guy, he comes from a family of watermelon farmers from Florida, 8th generation watermelon farmer. So after his first win a couple years ago, he decided to smash a watermelon and eat it. So that's become like his signature celebration.
That's electric.
So,
I love it. I'm a Ross Chastain fan now.
he smashed a watermelon. He's standing on the start-finish line, being interviewed by Amazon Prime, holding a big chunk of watermelon, just takes bites out of it.
Incredible. I love that.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
It was pretty electric.
Oh,
then,
amazing.
Of course, man of the people, he jumped into the crowd, started sharing watermelon with them. Absolute scenes.
Love that. Tough for Denny, though. I like Denny Hamlin. That's tough, though. But good for Ross Chastain. What a weekend of racing.
Yeah, like I said at the beginning, if you care about racing, this was the weekend for you.
Yep, what a weekend. All right, next week, Barcelona. How about that? We got, what is it? It's going to be round 10?
Yep, and I'm expecting a little bit more of the same. Premium on qualifying.
Round 9. Round 9.
A little bit difficult to overtake, but it's definitely possible there.
Looks like a decent sized back straight or front straight, whatever you want to call it, like where they start.
Yeah, yes, it is, but the problem with that is the corner that you're coming out of it until a couple years ago is very hard to follow. Then they got rid of a chicane there. It got a little bit easier. But the braking zone into 1, as you can see, is kind of like an S. So it's not like a full hard brake. It's kind of like a dusting on the brake and get yourself in position for that apex. So it's not, you really need to have a lot of overspeed so you can get the move done before the braking zone.
Yeah, and it looks like, I mean, there's 2 DRS zones. The
second one's pretty short, but comes into a very heavy braking zone towards the end of the lap. That's a good opportunity.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty short, but yeah,
that one's almost like a hairpin. That turn, it's like turn 12 or something.
It looks like
that, right?
two. Yeah, it's no, it's turn 9 is where it starts, and then 10 is where the braking zone is. For your third sector. So it looks like a good overtakes should be like 3. Turn 3 could be a good overtake spot, just because it's a wide turn? No. I mean, I'm asking here. Like, it looks like it's a wider turn. You're not exactly getting a ton of speed out of turn 1 into 2, but 3 looks like like the widest turn of the race.
Yeah, it's turn 1. There's a possible sniff into that, and then it's turn 10. Turn 10 after that DRS zone it's a very heavy braking zone, probably the best opportunity on the circuit to overtake.
So all right, so there's turn 1, turn 10, and then the DRS zone on the straight.
But for that corner though, you have to be really close coming through 7 and 8 and up that hill to 9. And then be careful coming out of 9, there's a gravel trap on the left. So there's a lot of factors that have to go into it, because if you overcook it at all, you're going to lose so much time.
Oh, wow. I was asking you earlier how long it's been. The first Grand Prix was 1991. Lap record, Max Verstappen, 2023, 66 lap race. I mean, it can't be worse than Monaco.
Pretty high deg circuit too, so that's something that can help out. You know, if we see varying strategies, you might be able to see people on charges at certain times of the race. This is where Lewis and Mercedes pulled off that magical two-stopper of they kind of just split their second stint in half, put double tires, and Lewis chased down Max from like 20 seconds back. It was unbelievable. I think that was 2020, maybe. Is either 20 or 21. But yeah, that's one of like the iconic strategy victories that Mercedes has.
Yeah.
But I'm this weekend looking for Ferrari to continue the progress they've been making. I think they've shown great race pace. I think it's important for them to qualify well here. But ultimately, McLaren's going to win. This used to be one of the circuits that they used for testing. So it really gives a good picture of full aerodynamic capabilities, a little bit of power. So I think it really suits McLaren, which is a dominant car. I think they're going to dominate.
I'm going to try something right here. I'm going to try and mute. Oh, interesting. See, I don't know if you heard that. There was an ad playing.
I did.
I want to watch. They have on F1 like website, Formula One's website. You can watch an onboard. So this looks like this is Lando's onboard from last year. Down the straight, and you said, yeah, you can't really. Okay, so there's that S right here. This is bad radio, but I mean, no, you can't make that. You can't really pass on that third turn. You're right.
No, if anything, it's possible maybe in 4. But even then, no, not really.
Yeah, it's just too. It's too. You could probably pass right there. It turns. Was that 6? And you go uphill, like you mentioned.
7, 8 is
gravel trap.
Left, right, uphill. What? Yeah, 9.
I could see people. 10. I could see people locking
10
up.
10 is the best opportunity.
Yeah, I could see people locking up. So this is the DRS zone. People locking up into like turn 7 or whatever it is, 6 into the gravel trap, and you can pass there. No, there's definitely going to be overtake. There's going to be more overtaking than there was.
You might be able to in 5, depending on the run you get from 3 and 4. But that's a very difficult one. I think that's actually where Albon and Lewis came together.
Yeah, it's just this is going to be. There's a lot more turns that are passable here than Monaco, and I know you mentioned that this is not the easiest place to pass, but anything is more than
possible,
Monaco.
But it's difficult. It's possible, but difficult. There's room.
And I think that
hard to find the run to do it with.
If Ferrari, it looks like there's a lot of. I wouldn't say these are high speed turns, right? You'd say these are more high speed turns.
A lot of medium
turns. Yeah, I mean Ferrari looked really good with their low speed stuff. I'd be interested to see if they could.
Curious to see Aston.
Really?
Yeah.
What about Aston's got you curious?
I think it was a few years ago when they got out really hot at the start of the season. I think that was 2022, or was that 23? I don't remember. Anyway,
I don't remember.
when they got out and Alonso was getting all those podiums, medium speed is what they were really good at. So like, I'm curious to see if they still have the same traits in their car and are just getting faster again, or if they've kind of rebuilt their strengths from a few years ago. So I'm curious. Also on Aston Martin, man, did Adrian Newey look like a kid in a candy shop this weekend in Monaco? His first time at the track, and he had his little notebook and he was doodling all the cars. And he was like, "Ooh, I see what you're doing there, McLaren. I see your little tire tricks." It was cool. It was cool watching him.
I love that. All right, so Barcelona. What is your prediction for the weekend? You mentioned McLaren continuing, their dominance. I think that's like kind of a foregone conclusion for every race at this point.
I think Oscar bites back after Monaco. I think he played the role well, but I don't think he was thrilled just being stuck in third all weekend. Once qualifying happened, he knew that he was just there to help Lando. So I think he bites back hard from that.
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it's going to be either Lando or Oscar. It's tough to make a prediction. It's kind of like you're just flipping a coin at this point with these two. Who finishes quali better? I'll go with Lando just because maybe he won last weekend.
I didn't.
Yeah, because you didn't. Yeah, that's exactly. No, I think Lando winning at Monaco is a big deal, and I wouldn't say this gets the monkey off his back. He's won races before. I guess he won Miami. And he's won a few.
And Oscar had the same amount of wins coming into this weekend.
So this is upcoming. Yeah. So this is this breaks the tie. But I think he carries the momentum from Monaco. He's feeling good, confident. Lando is good. Lando, and hopefully the mistakes, the silly mistakes, are behind him, and he can, really take command of this drivers' championship. And over the next couple of weeks, I do like Lando more than Oscar, just because Lando's just personality is just more fun to root for. Not that Oscar's a bad guy; it's just he's not as entertaining. I am also interested to see how Ferrari does, because is Monaco just like, is Ferrari just a Monaco merchant? Is that just what they are right now? Or were these legitimate improvements that they made that we're going to see throughout the rest of the season? I'm more inclined to believe the former, just because we haven't seen any consistency from them, and racing strategy has been horrendous throughout the season. I know your eyes go wide there as a Ferrari fan. But...
No, because I thought that you were saying that you were expecting them to do well, because you said the former, but it's
no. You meant
the latter, where you're not expecting. You think they were just Monaco merchants.
Yes, yeah, no, the former. Where that's the first.
Former is the first.
Yeah,
right, you said that second though.
Oh, sorry. Then yes,
that's what I think that they're. You think we're gonna be good?
Yeah, no. Apologies. Yes, I think that they are. I think that it's a little bit of a Monaco merchant thing going on right now, where they've kind of figured that track out. They also have Charles, who's from Monaco and knows the track better than anybody. They have Lewis, who's won there 4 times now.
I think 3, 2 or 3.
Yeah, so I think they might be a little bit of a Monaco merchant. But it wouldn't surprise me if it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me if they had a decent weekend this weekend. Like I said earlier, it's going to be the what
if Ferrari wins Carlos's home race from the year that he's not there.
That would be
That would
pretty
be
funny.
brutal.
Yeah, but the story of the season, the rest of the way that I'm watching, that I care about the most is the race for second, between
I'm
Red
still
Bull.
interested in the championship. I still want to know which of the two McLarens are going to win.
Yeah. I mean, that one. Sorry, yes, that is also a big storyline. But McLaren's going to win the constructors. Who's going to? All right, so there's two then. Who's going to win the drivers' championship between Lando and Oscar? And then the other one is who's coming in second in the constructors? Because it could be Ferrari.
Who's the third?
Yeah, what's the third?
Who's going to be the third team to win a race this year? Full length race. We're not counting sprints. We're not counting like the Ferrari China thing. What's the third team that's going to win a race this year? It's going to be Ferrari or is it going to be Mercedes?
I think.
Anyway, we don't have to answer that now. I just want.
Yeah. All right.
We don't have time.
But my initial reaction was Mercedes. Anyway, I think I'm picking Lando to win, and I'm gonna go Lando. I'll go Lando, Max, Oscar.
Okay, well then, fine. I'm gonna go Oscar, Max, Lando. No, I'm gonna go Oscar, Lando, Charles. Leclerc!
Turn that hat around. Turn that hat around. Show them that logo. There it is. Ferrari, baby. All right. Listen, I found myself rooting for Charles during qualifying, over my boys in McLaren. And Monaco.
For it, Monaco.
Yeah, I just wanted the hometown kid to go back to back. I thought that'd be a really fun story.
For Yuki at Suzuka, it's like you deserve to be slapped.
Yeah, So.
Oh, by the way, did you see Zhou's hair? Zhou Guanyu made an appearance.
No, I didn't.
What did they do to my boy? They put a bowl on his head.
Oh no!
Look it up when we're off here. But anyway, I guess that's my closing remark.
All right, folks.
What'd you do to my boy?
That's it for us. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok.
Smash that like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week. All right. Peace.